Protection, in the context of witchcraft, is often misunderstood as something external, something performed through objects, rituals, or symbols that stand between the self and perceived harm. Candles are lit, herbs are burned, circles are cast. These practices hold value not because they are inherently powerful on their own, but because they anchor attention and intention. Yet the deeper truth is that protection is not something placed around you. It is something established within you. It is a function of clarity, self-trust, and the willingness to define what is and is not allowed to remain in your energetic field. At the center of this understanding lies the concept of boundaries. Boundaries are not defenses in the traditional sense. They are decisions. They are expressions of self-definition that determine how you relate to others and how much access others have to you. Without boundaries, even the most elaborate protective rituals become ineffective because the core issue is not intrusion, it is permission. Many people do not suffer from a lack of protection, but from an unconscious habit of allowing what they already know is misaligned. This is where the practice of cord cutting becomes significant. Cord cutting is often presented as a ritual designed to sever energetic ties between individuals. While this is partially true, it is more accurate to understand it as a process of disentanglement from patterns of attachment that persist beyond their usefulness. These attachments are not always visible. They exist in emotional reactions, in recurring thoughts, in the subtle sense of obligation or guilt that arises even in the absence of direct interaction. A cord is not merely a connection, it is a sustained exchange of energy that continues without conscious choice. To perform a cord-cutting ritual in its most effective form, one must first acknowledge what is being maintained. This requires a level of honesty that is often avoided. It is easier to frame attachments as loyalty, empathy, or responsibility than to recognize them as habits rooted in fear of rejection, fear of conflict, or fear of being alone. The ritual itself is simple. One brings awareness to the person, situation, or pattern in question, identifies where the attachment is felt within the body, and makes a clear internal decision to release it. Visualization may be used, imagining a cord being cut, burned, or dissolved. But the visualization is secondary. The defining element is the decision to no longer participate in the dynamic. What follows this act is often more challenging than the ritual itself. The removal of an energetic attachment creates space, and that space can feel unfamiliar. Without the constant pull of the previous connection, there may be a sense of emptiness or disorientation. This is not a sign that the release was incorrect. It is an indication that the self is no longer being defined through that attachment. Over time, this space stabilizes into clarity. The absence of entanglement allows for a more accurate perception of both self and others. Within modern spiritual and witchcraft communities, there is a pervasive, often unspoken concern about being witchy enough. This concern manifests as comparison, self-doubt, and a reliance on external validation. People question whether they are performing rituals correctly, whether they possess the necessary intuition, or whether they have the right to claim a certain identity at all. This line of thinking undermines the very foundation of personal power. Witchcraft, historically and philosophically, is not a system that requires authorization. It is a practice rooted in direct experience and personal relationship with one's inner and outer world. The effectiveness of a boundary or a protective act does not depend on adherence to a specific aesthetic or tradition. It depends on the clarity of the individual enacting it. Doubt does not invalidate the practice, but the need for external approval can weaken the consistency with which one applies it. In this context, boundaries become the ongoing expression of protection. A cord-cutting ritual may initiate the release, but boundaries maintain it. They are enacted through behavior, through what one agrees to, what one declines, and how one responds to attempts to re-establish old dynamics. This often requires tolerating discomfort, particularly when others react negatively. When a person who is accustomed to having access is met with a boundary, resistance is likely. This resistance can take many forms, including criticism, guilt-inducing language, or withdrawal. Protection in this sense is not about ensuring that others respond positively. It is about remaining consistent regardless of their response. This requires a shift from seeking harmony at all costs to prioritizing alignment with one's own values and well-being. Some connections may weaken or dissolve entirely, while others may adjust and become more balanced. This process is often gradual and does not require dramatic confrontation. Ultimately, protection and boundaries are not separate practices, but aspects of the same principle. Both are grounded in the recognition that one has agency over their own energy and attention. Rituals can support this recognition, but they cannot replace it. The most effective form of protection is not found in any single act, but in the ongoing willingness to act in accordance with what one already knows to be true. To establish a boundary is to assert that not everything deserves continued access. To cut a cord is to acknowledge that some connections persist only because they have not yet been consciously released. Together, these practices form a framework for navigating relationships and experiences with greater clarity and autonomy. They are not about isolation or avoidance, but about intentional participation, choosing what remains and what is allowed to fall away.